Number 10. The Elanmore Lighthouse. There is an abandoned lighthouse in Scotland hiding a terrible secret. The secret goes back to December 26, 1900. A ship made its way to the lighthouse at Elanmore in the Outer Hebrides. Aside from the lighthouse keeper stationed there, the island was completely uninhabited. The ship was carrying the replacement lighthouse keeper. He was supposed to take over for the trio of men who had been looking over the lighthouse in the months prior. But when the ship arrived, the replacement lighthouse keeper was shocked to find that nobody was there. Not a single person was in the lighthouse. Nobody was anywhere to be found on the island. There was no sign of what had transpired. The only real clue came from the lighthouse log entries. One of the last logs detailed a severe storm, the likes of which the keepers had never seen before. The same entry claimed that one of the keepers had been unusually quiet, while the third assistant had been weeping. Nobody was ever able to make sense of this, especially because there were no reported storms in the area. To this day, no trace of the keepers has ever been found. Nobody knows what happened out there on the island of Elanmore. What do you think happened? Let us know in the comments. Number 9. Rotting corpses. At a creepy abandoned church in Ohio, authorities discovered the very last thing you would ever expect to be in a place of worship. We have to warn you now, it's pretty disturbing. Authorities investigating the abandoned church in Akron discovered the cremated remains of nearly 100 people. This is the Greater Faith Missionary Baptist Church, where Pastor Shante Harden mishandled the corpses of his congregation. The eerie discovery came thanks to a pair of urban explorers who wanted to peek around in the creepy church. But it turned into something neither of them had expected when they found dozens of boxes of ashes stashed in the abandoned property. Some of the dates went all the way back to 2010. Agents with the Ohio Attorney General's Bureau of Criminal Investigation seized the remains and investigated. They connected the corpses to the pastor. He had allegedly been running a funeral service out of the abandoned building, but it looks like it was a con, seeing as he wasn't actually burying anybody. He was running an illegal and unlicensed funeral home. Instead of hosting funerals, this guy was just stashing all the dead people in the decrepit church. Families trusted this guy to bury their loved ones, and instead, he just stacked them up and left them there. And to make matters just a little more disturbing, he may have been living inside the building as well, next to all those dead people. Number 8. Creepy Mansion. There is a beautiful and strange abandoned mansion built in 1925 hiding deep in New York's Catskill Mountains. The family who originally lived here were part of an Italian-American clan, but little else is known about them. We know that they left the property vacant for unknown reasons shortly after moving in, and it's been abandoned ever since. There have been attempts throughout the decades to sell the property, but nobody has ever purchased it, and so it's been reclaimed by nature. But here's the creepiest thing about the mansion. Inside, it's decorated as if by circus performers. It's beautiful and old on the outside, but the interior is full of striped wallpaper, rooms painted in yellow and blue diamonds, and there are colorful croquet balls all over the damaged floor. No one has a single clue as to why the mansion was decorated to look like the inside of a circus tent. And nearly 100 years later, we still don't know why it was abandoned in the first place. Number 7. The Ghost Mansion. The Ghost Mansion, also known as Via de Vecchi, is a mysterious summer residence built by an Italian count back in 1854. But after just a few years after being completed, the house was plagued by tragedies and abandoned. First of all, the owner of the house, Count Felix de Vecchi, was the head of the Italian National Guard. He was considered a hero for his help in liberating Milan from Austrian rule back in 1848. He built the house as a dream retreat for himself and his family, but a year before the house was completed, the architect in charge of creating it died. This was the first bad omen. Several years later, the Count came home one day to find that his wife had been brutally murdered and his daughter had been kidnapped. He never did figure out who killed his wife, and he was never able to find his missing daughter. After a lengthy search, the Count died later the same year. The house passed on to his brother. The family continued to live on the grounds until World War II, and then it was abandoned for good. It's still sitting in the middle of nowhere today, a creepy old ruin filled with the ghosts of the Count's family. Number 6. Haunted School. The Lilsden School for Girls in England is purportedly haunted. The abandoned building started as a mansion but was later purchased by a banker named Edward Lloyd. This was in the 1800s. When World War I came along, the building was converted into a hospital. Dozens of wounded soldiers were taken care of here, and many lost their lives. When the war ended, the mansion became a school for young girls. By 1975, segregated schools weren't popular anymore, and the building became an ordinary school. But it closed its doors in 1999 and has been empty ever since. What kind of secrets is this ghoulish school hiding? According to those who visit, the answer is ghosts. Ghost hunters and urban explorers alike have reported seeing the phantoms of young children prowling the halls. Whether these ghosts belong to students who died on the property or not, nobody can say for certain. All we know is this place is creepy. If you were ever brave enough to explore it at night, you could run into the ghost of a little boy or girl. Do you think you would ever be brave enough to spend a night in this haunted school? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button before the end of this video. Number 5. Pablo Escobar's Secret Island. Pablo Escobar is long dead and gone, but the man's legacy remains as a curse on the nation of Colombia. His reign of terror has also affected the Caribbean. In the middle of the Caribbean Sea, on a secret island that you may never have heard of, Pablo Escobar still has one of his mansions rotting away in the jungle. The island is called La Isla Grande, home to about 800 locals. These people don't actually do much except fish and farm, and are pretty cut off from our modern world. Still, the island caught the attention of Pablo Escobar. He loved it so much that he built his own palace on the far side, secreted between the Caribbean Sea and the tropical forest of the interior. This is a palace by every definition. It's fit for a king, even if that king was a known drug lord. The massive complex has waterfront apartments, a swimming pool, a landing pad for a helicopter, and over 300 rooms for his guests. There were even gold shower heads in the bathrooms, but these days, it's only accessible by walking for hours through the Caribbean forest. It's been abandoned for decades. It has gradually been breaking down as the wild island reclaims it. Number 4. The Chacaltaya Ski Resort. The Chacaltaya Ski Resort was the highest of its kind. Located in Bolivia, this ski resort stood at a whopping 17,519 feet above sea level. For a ski resort, it was higher up than the northern base camp of Mount Everest. It had a beautiful restaurant, recognized by the Guinness World Records as the highest restaurant on the planet. It originally opened in the 1930s, and the local Bolivians flocked to its slopes for 8 months out of the year. People even visited from all over the globe. But like all good things, the ski resort came to an end. Its decline started in the 1990s when scientists at a nearby laboratory began to make some pretty scary predictions. They said the glacier would be gone by 2015, but it actually vanished by 2009, a glacier over 18,000 years old. The resort had no other choice but to shut down when the ice and snow was gone. After all, you can't really ski if there's no snow. All that remains of the ski resort today are the ghostly ruins of buildings perched on the edge of a barren mountain without a drop of snow. The only secret still being kept here is that the great warming is coming. Pretty soon, places like Mount Everest could suffer the same fate as the world's highest ski resort. Number 3. The Lenox Castle Hospital. The Lenox Castle Hospital can be found near Glasgow, Scotland. Even though it attracts visitors from all over the world who are fascinated by its aged exterior, many of them don't know the secret truth inside the structure. It was designed in 1837 by architect David Hamilton. It was built in the Norman style over a period of only 4 years. The first owner was John Lenox Kincaid, who lived there with his family. But during World War I, the castle was converted into a military hospital. The real strangeness came when the war was over. In 1925, the Glasgow City Council turned the castle into a psychiatric hospital. It became the Lenox Castle Certified Institution for Mental Defectives in 1936. It was a terrifying combination of a weathered castle from the 1800s and the cruel practices of mental health care in the 1930s. There can't be anything worse than getting a lobotomy in the dungeon of an actual castle. After World War II, the mental defectives, as they called them back then, were kicked out, and the castle was turned into a maternity hospital. It reached its peak in 1970, and in 1980, it started to deteriorate. The castle was in horrible condition and was eventually abandoned. Nobody's taken care of it since, allowing it to slowly demolish itself. Number 2. The Mine in the Hills. Visitors to Cape Breton's Gypsum Mine Trail don't always realize that the enormous lake at the heart of the trail is in fact an abandoned gypsum mine. It looks like a natural lake in the center of some splendid hills, with nothing to see for miles but untouched greenery. But the secret truth is that the lake is a flooded gypsum mine from 1907. The gypsum located in these mountains was found by a prospector in the year 1897. At the time, there was a small village here whose inhabitants fished for their livelihoods. But the mine came in 1907. Machinery and thousands of tons of equipment were brought in the next year, and they even built a track for a steam locomotive to haul out all the gypsum. Everyone in the town got filthy rich. The mine continued to operate until 1939, when the transport ships and workers needed to be transferred to the war effort. It sat abandoned ever since, going on 80 years now. This used to be torn up land, dirty and full of pollution, but water has filled the mine up and trees have regrown along the pillaged hillsides. Number 1. Abandoned Missile Silo. In the countryside of Kansas, there is an abandoned nuclear bunker complex that was designed and built in the 1960s. Its silos were intended to hold the decommissioned Atlas F missiles, which were deployed from between 1961 and 1965 before they became outdated. The missile silo spans 11 acres of land and burrows about 170 feet beneath the earth. The entire complex was designed to withstand a direct hit from an enemy's missile, withstanding a blast force of 200 pounds per square inch. It was one of the very first super-hardened missile silos ever created, and yet you'd never know it was here. The secret is that it's pretty much all underground. The entrance to the bunker is through a single door sticking out of the ground like a concrete barricade. The only other sign that this was once a missile silo is the Quonset hut standing near the entrance, and the barbed wire fence that surrounds the whole place. Would you dare spend the night in an abandoned mine in the hills? Let us know in the comments section down below, and thanks so much for watching. Remember to hit that subscribe button for all the most interestingly creepy videos on the internet. See you soon. Bye.